The storm crashed against the rocky coastline with supernatural fury, waves rising higher than any weather report had predicted. Kira Chen pulled her rain jacket tighter as she made her way across the slippery rocks toward the research station. The marine biology lab sat perched on the cliff like a lighthouse, its windows glowing warm against the violent darkness of the night. Something was wrong with the ocean. For weeks, her instruments had been picking up unusual readings. Water temperatures fluctuating wildly, marine life behaving strangely. And now, this impossible storm that seemed to rage with intelligence rather than mere natural force. As she climbed the final stretch of path, a flash of lightning illuminated something massive washed up on the shore below. Kira stopped, squinting through the rain. It looked like a person, but the shape seemed too large, too still. Without thinking, she changed direction and scrambled down the treacherous rocks toward the beach. The storm howled around her, but she pressed forward. As a scientist, she couldn't ignore someone who might need help. When she reached the figure, her breath caught in her throat. A man lay unconscious on the sand, but he was unlike anyone she had ever seen. His skin held a faint shimmer, like scales catching moonlight. Dark hair fell across sharp, angular features that belonged more to ancient sculptures than modern humanity. He was tall, powerfully built, and completely naked except for strange markings that covered his arms and chest like living tattoos. Kira knelt beside him, checking for a pulse. His skin was warm despite the cold storm, and she could feel his heartbeat, strong but irregular. When her fingers touched his wrist, the markings on his skin began to glow with soft golden light. The man's eyes snapped open, revealing irises that swirled with colors no human eyes should possess, deep amber flecked with silver and hints of flame. He stared at her with confusion and something that looked like ancient pain. "Where am I?" His voice carried an accent she couldn't place, melodic yet rough, as if he hadn't spoken in centuries. "You're on Crescent Bay, off the Oregon coast," Kira said, pulling off her jacket to cover him. "I'm Kira. I found you unconscious." "Are you hurt?" He sat up slowly, muscles rippling beneath skin that still held that otherworldly shimmer. "I am Zephyr." He paused, as if remembering something painful. "And I am more hurt than your kind could understand." Thunder crashed overhead, and Zephyr winced as if the sound caused him physical pain. The golden markings on his skin flared brighter. "We need to get you inside," Kira said. "The storm is getting worse." As they struggled up the cliff path together, Kira couldn't shake the feeling that she had just crossed some invisible line. The rational part of her mind cataloged everything strange about this man. His unusual strength, the way animals seemed to sense his presence and flee. How the storm appeared to follow their movements inside the research station. She wrapped him in blankets and made coffee while he sat silently by the window, watching the storm with eyes that held too much knowledge. "This storm," he said finally, "it comes because of me." Kira turned from the coffee maker. "That's impossible. Weather doesn't work that way. Your science cannot explain everything that exists." Zephyr's gaze met hers, and she saw centuries of sorrow reflected there. "I am not what I appear to be." "Then what are you?" He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "I am the last of my kind in these lands. A dragon prince, cursed to walk in human form until I can prove my worth to both worlds." The logical part of Kira's brain rejected his words immediately. Dragons were mythology, fairy tales told to children. But looking into those impossible eyes, feeling the power that seemed to radiate from his very being, she found herself believing. "The curse," she whispered. "500 years ago, I was proud, arrogant. I believed my kind superior to humans," his hands clenched into fists. "A dark sorcerer named Grimwald offered to teach me humility. He bound me to human form, but left me my dragon memories, my dragon lifespan. I have watched centuries pass, unable to fly, unable to return to my true nature." The storm outside intensified, and the lights flickered. Zephyr stood abruptly, his body tense with anticipation. "He comes," Zephyr said, his voice carrying new urgency. "Grimwald. He checks on his handiwork every few decades, ensuring the curse holds." Why are you telling me this? Kira asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Because the curse can only be broken by genuine love freely given by one of your kind. And because you touched me without fear, even seeing what I truly am. He turned to face her fully. I have lived 5 centuries without hope. But when you found me on that beach, when your touch made my dragon marks glow, I felt something I thought was lost forever. The building shook as something massive landed on the roof. Dust rained from the ceiling, and the windows rattled in their frames. He's here, Zephyr said grimly, and he will not be pleased to sense the bond forming between us. Kira's heart pounded, but she stepped closer to him instead of backing away. What do you need me to do? Nothing, he said fiercely. I will not put you in danger. This is my burden to bear. But before she could respond, the roof tore away like paper. A figure descended through the opening, floating on currents of dark magic. Grimwald appeared as a tall, gaunt man with silver hair and eyes like black holes. Power radiated from him in waves that made the air itself feel heavy and wrong. My dear Zephyr, Grimwald said, his voice like silk wrapped around poison. Still playing human, I see. And you found yourself a pet. Leave her out of this, Zephyr snarled. And for a moment, Kira could almost see the dragon fire burning behind his human features. But she's already involved, isn't she? I can sense the bond beginning to form. How deliciously tragic. Grimwald's gaze fixed on Kira. Do you know what you're playing with, little human? Do you know how many of your kind he's killed in his dragon form? Kira felt ice flow through her veins, but she didn't step away from Zephyr. People change, she said quietly. That's what makes us human. He is not human, Grimwald laughed. He is a monster wearing a human mask. And I'll prove it to you. The sorcerer raised his hand, and dark energy crackled between his fingers. But instead of striking at Zephyr, the magic lashed out toward Kira. Without hesitation, Zephyr threw himself between them. The curse-powered magic struck him full in the chest, and he cried out as golden light exploded from his dragon markings. His human form flickered, revealing glimpses of scales, wings, and flame. Interesting, Grimwald mused as Zephyr collapsed to his knees. The protective instinct grows stronger. But it will not be enough to break 5 centuries of magical binding. Kira knelt beside Zephyr, helping him stay upright as his body convulsed between human and dragon forms. His skin burned with fever, and the golden markings spread across more of his body like living fire. Fight it, she whispered, taking his hand despite the heat. I believe in you. You should have let him hit me, Zephyr gasped. Now, the curse grows stronger. It feeds on dragon emotions. Protecting you has awakened things I've kept buried for centuries. Good, Grimwald said, circling them like a predator. Let him remember what he truly is. Let him show you his real nature, girl. When you see the monster behind the mask, any bond between you will shatter, and he'll be mine forever. But as the transformation took hold, as Zephyr's human disguise began to fall away completely, Kira didn't recoil. She held his changing hand tighter and looked directly into eyes that now burned with dragon fire. I'm not afraid of who you really are, she said, her voice carrying across the howling wind that poured through the destroyed roof. I'm only afraid of losing you. For the first time in 500 years, the curse wavered. The curse flickered like a dying flame as Kira's words echoed through the destroyed research station. Grimwald's confident smile faltered for the first time in centuries. The dark sorcerer had seen many attempts to break his magical bindings, but never had he witnessed such immediate acceptance of a dragon's true nature. Zephyr's transformation slowed, caught between human and dragon forms. His skin rippled with scales that appeared and vanished like waves on water. Wings tried to unfurl from his shoulders but remained translucent, not quite solid. His eyes burned with ancient fire, yet tears of pain streaked down his changing face. Impossible, Grimwald hissed. No human accepts a dragon so easily. There must be deception here, but Kira kept her grip on Zephyr's hand, even as claws briefly extended from his fingers before retracting. She looked up at the sorcerer with fierce determination. You don't understand humans, It's very well for someone who's lived so long, she said. We're capable of love beyond your narrow experience. Dr. Elena Vasquez arrived at that moment. Having driven through the supernatural storm after receiving Kira's emergency signal hours earlier, the older scientist stood in the doorway, taking in the scene with remarkable composure. Her gray hair was wild from the wind, but her dark eyes remained steady as they moved from the floating sorcerer to the half-transformed dragon prince. Well, Lena said calmly, pulling a strange crystalline device from her jacket, I was wondering when one of you would finally reveal yourselves. Both Grimwald and Zephyr stared at her in shock. Alina smiled grimly as she activated the device, which began to emit a soft blue light. Did you think the scientific community was completely ignorant of your kind? We've been tracking unusual energy signatures for decades. Dragons, sorcerers, various magical beings trying to hide in plain sight. She pointed the device at Grimwald, including dark magic users who leave distinctive traces. Wherever they go, Grimwald snarled and sent a bolt of shadow energy toward Alina, but the device created a protective barrier that absorbed the attack. The crystalline surface glowed brighter, feeding on the magical assault. Dragon tech, Elena explained to Kira, developed by the few dragons who work with human governments. Turns out your boyfriend isn't the only one of his kind who learned to value cooperation over conquest. Zephyr struggled to his feet, his form stabilizing into mostly human shape, though his eyes still held dragon fire. There are others who broke their curses? Not exactly, Alina said, keeping her defensive device trained on the increasingly agitated Grimwald. But there are dragons who chose to work with humanity voluntarily. They helped us create safe zones, research facilities, places where both species could coexist. She gestured toward a hidden panel in the wall that slid open to reveal an elevator shaft. This research station isn't just for marine biology. It's built above one of the largest dragon sanctuaries on the west coast. The revelation hit Grimwald like a physical blow. His perfect features twisted with rage. You dare harbor dragons? You dare interfere with my work? Your work is keeping an entire species in hiding, Alina shot back. Zephyr isn't the only dragon you've cursed. We've been tracking your victims for years, trying to find ways to free them. As if summoned by her words, the building shook again. But this time, the tremors came from below rather than above. Something massive was rising from the depths beneath the research station. The floor split open, revealing a vast underground cavern lit by bioluminescent crystals. And rising from that cavern came the most magnificent creature Kira had ever seen. The dragon was enormous, with scales that shifted between deep emerald and sapphire blue. Her wings stretched wider than the research station itself, and her eyes held the wisdom of millennia. When she spoke, her voice resonated through both air and mind. Brother, the dragon said, her gaze fixed on Zephyr. You have been gone too long. Zephyr dropped to one knee, his human form trembling with emotion. Seraphina, I thought I would never see you again. I have searched for you across 3 centuries, Seraphina replied, landing gracefully despite her massive size. When the sanctuary's sensors detected your dragon magic awakening, I came immediately. Grimwald backed toward the destroyed wall, his confidence cracking further. Facing one cursed dragon was manageable. Facing a fully powered dragon, accompanied by human allies, with magical technology was becoming problematic. This changes nothing, he snarled. The curse cannot be broken by sisterly love or human gadgets. It requires something pure, something impossible. But Seraphine's attention had shifted to Kira, who still stood protectively near Zephyr, despite being surrounded by magical chaos. The great dragon studied the human woman with ancient eyes. You are the one, Seraphina said softly, the one who sees him truly. I don't know about destiny or prophecies, Kira said, finding her voice despite the surreal situation. I only know that I care about him. I won't let some bitter sorcerer keep him trapped. Seraphine's massive head tilted, almost like a nod of approval. Love freely given, untainted by fear or greed. It is rarer than you might think among either of our species. The dragon turned to Grimwald, and her voice carried the authority of eons. Your curse weakens, sorcerer. Can you feel it? 500 years of magical binding? It's unraveling because one human chose compassion over fear? Grimwald raised his hands. Dark energy crackling between his fingers, but his magic flickered uncertainly. The curse had indeed begun to weaken as the bond between Kira and Zephyr strengthened. "I will not be denied," he screamed, pouring more power into his magic. "If I cannot keep the dragon cursed, then I will ensure his human dies." The attack came like liquid shadow, too fast for Elena's device to fully block. But Zephyr moved faster, his partially transformed body intercepting the deadly magic. The curse-powered energy struck him directly. And this time, the backlash was visible. Golden light exploded from every dragon marking on his skin. His human form flickered wildly as the curse fought against the growing bond. Wings erupted from his shoulders only to dissolve moments later. Scales covered his arms before vanishing like smoke. But something else was happening. Each time his dragon nature surfaced, it stayed a little longer. The curse was losing its grip, feeding on hatred and fear that were being replaced by love and acceptance. Kira rushed to his side as he collapsed. But this time, when she touched him, both their bodies glowed with soft golden light. The bond between them was becoming visible, tangible, real. "I can see it," Seraphina said wonderingly. "The curse is breaking. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Each moment of genuine connection weakens the magical chains." Elena kept her device trained on Grimwald while pulling out her phone with her free hand. "This is Dr. Vasquez. We need a full containment team at Crescent Bay Research Station. High-level magical threat." Grimwald laughed bitterly. "You think your human authorities can hold me?" "I have power beyond your comprehension," maybe Elena said. "But you've used most of that power maintaining centuries of curses. And dragon tech weapons are specifically designed to counter sorcery." The sound of approaching helicopters filled the air. Grimwald's eyes darted between the massive dragon, the armed scientist, and the couple on the floor whose bond was systematically destroying his greatest work. "This is not over," he snarled. "The curse may weaken, but it will not break icily. And there are other ways to ensure dragons remain where they belong." With a gesture, he wrapped himself in shadows and vanished, but his parting words echoed ominously. "The human world will turn against you when they learn what you truly are. And when fear replaces love, the curse will return stronger than ever." In the sudden silence, Kira helped Zephyr sit up. His form had stabilized again, mostly human, but with dragon eyes and faint scale patterns along his arms that refused to fade completely. "He's right about one thing," Zephyr said quietly. "When the world learns about us, about what I am, you'll face hatred and fear from your own kind. Are you prepared for that?" Kira looked around at the destroyed research station, at the massive dragon who watched them with ancient patience, at Elena, who calmly coordinated with government dragon specialists. Over her phone, "The world is already changing," she said. "Maybe it's time it changed a little more." Seraphina lowered her great head near them. "The sanctuary below has resources, knowledge, ways to help newly awakened dragons adjust to their abilities. You are welcome to stay while the curse continues to weaken." "And the research?" Kira asked. "The work I was doing on ocean pollution." Elena smiled. "Dragons have been the ocean's guardians for millennia. You'd be amazed how much environmental work you can accomplish with magical assistance." As the first government vehicles arrived, their occupants clearly familiar with supernatural situations, Kira realized her life had irrevocably changed. But looking into Zephyr's eyes, seeing the hope that had replaced centuries of despair, she found she didn't mind. The curse was weakening, but breaking it completely would require more than acceptance. It would require them to face the human world together, to prove that love could bridge the gap between species that had been enemies for so long. 3 months had passed since the night Grimwald's curse began to crack. The underground dragon sanctuary beneath Crescent Bay had become home to an unprecedented experiment in interspecies cooperation. Kira split her time between her marine research and learning about dragon culture from Seraphina, while Zephyr worked to master the partial transformation, abilities his weakening curse had granted him. But the outside world was growing suspicious. Captain James Morrison of the U.S. Military Supernatural Threats Division stood at the edge of the research station's rebuilt platform, his steel-gray eyes scanning the horizon. His weathered face bore the scars of encounters with creatures most humans never imagined existed. Behind him, a team of soldiers in specialized armor waited with weapons designed to neutralize magical beings. "Dr. Vasquez," Morrison said, without turning around. "My sensors indicate massive energy signatures coming from beneath this facility. Energy signatures that match known dragon profiles." Alina emerged from the station, her tablet displaying innocuous marine data. "Captain Morrison, we've been through this. Our research involves studying electromagnetic fields and ocean currents. Some unusual readings are expected." "Cut the act, Doctor." Morrison turned to face her, his expression grim. "We know about the sanctuary. We know about the dragons hiding below. And we know about the cursed one who's been living among humans." The confrontation had been inevitable. Despite Elena's connections within the government's supernatural divisions, there were still those who viewed any magical being as a threat to be eliminated rather than understood. Deep in the sanctuary below, Zephyr felt the presence of hostile forces above. His dragon senses, growing stronger as the curse weakened, could detect the killing intent radiating from Morrison's team. He found Kira in the crystal garden, where she often came to think, surrounded by bioluminescent formations that responded to dragon magic. "They've come for me," he said. Simply, Kira looked up from her notebook where she'd been, sketching the symbiotic relationship between dragon magic and deep-sea organisms. The past months had revealed that dragons weren't just magical beings, but essential guardians of natural balance. Their presence helped maintain oceanic ecosystems in ways human science was only beginning to understand. She asked, already standing and closing her research, "Enough to be a problem. And they have weapons specifically designed to kill dragons." His form flickered slightly, stress causing his human disguise to waver. "Kira, you need to distance yourself from me. If they believe you're working with dragons willingly, you'll be considered a collaborator." She moved closer to him instead of backing away. "After everything we've been through, you think I'm going to abandon you now? This is different. These aren't sorcerers or mythical threats. These are your own people, and they're afraid." Above them, the situation was escalating. Serafina had sensed the hostile intent and emerged from the deeper caverns, her massive form rising through the facility's central shaft. Her appearance on the surface sent Morrison's team into defensive positions. Weapons trained on the magnificent dragon, "Stand down," Morrison shouted, though whether to his men or the dragon wasn't clear. "We know you're harboring illegal magical entities. Surrender the cursed dragon, and no one needs to get hurt." Seraphine's voice carried both authority and sadness. "Illegal? We have lived in these waters for thousands of years, before your kind built their first boats. We are not invaders, Captain. We are refugees. Refugees who could level cities if they chose to," Morrison replied, his finger hovering near his weapon's trigger. "The supernatural accords are clear. Unregistered magical beings of class 5 or higher must submit to government oversight or face neutralization." Alina stepped between the dragon and the soldiers. "The accords also guarantee protection for magical beings who cooperate with human authorities. This sanctuary is a joint operation, approved by the same government you serve, approved by politicians who don't understand the true threat," Morrison said. "I've seen what dragons can do when they lose control. Cities burned, thousands dead. I won't let it happen again." That's when Zephyr and Kira emerged from the facility, riding the crystal elevator that connected the surface to the sanctuary depths. Zephyr had partially transformed, his human form enhanced with dragon strength and senses, but still recognizably the man Kira had found on the beach months ago. Morrison's eyes locked onto him immediately. "The cursed one. You're coming with us." "No," Kira said firmly, stepping in front of Zephyr. "He's under the protection of the research treaty. He's been helping us understand oceanic magical phenomena." Morrison's laugh was bitter. "You think a few months of playing house with a monster makes you qualified to judge the threat? I've read your file, Dr. Chen. Brilliant scientist. but naive about the supernatural world. Then let me educate you, Seraphina interjected. Her massive head lowered until she was eye level with the captain. Do you know what happens to ocean ecosystems when dragons are removed from them? Without waiting for an answer, she gestured with one clawed hand toward the sea. The water around the research station began to glow, revealing the complex network of magical currents that flowed beneath the surface. Schools of fish swam in perfect formation, following patterns that corresponded to dragon magic. Coral reefs pulsed with bioluminescent life, their health directly tied to the sanctuary's protective influence. We don't just live in the ocean, Seraphina continued. We are part of it. Remove us, and entire ecosystems collapse. Your human pollution has already damaged so much. Without dragon guardians, the remaining marine life would die within decades. Morrison wavered, his scientific mind wrestling with his military training, but before he could respond, the water around them suddenly turned black. A familiar laugh echoed across the waves as Grimwald materialized above the surface, floating on currents of dark magic. How touching, the sorcerer said, his voice dripping with malice. Dragons and humans working together. It's exactly the sort of unity I've spent centuries preventing. Morrisons immediately shifted their weapons toward the new threat, recognizing the greater danger. Identify yourself. I am the reason your people fear dragons, Grimwald replied. Every dragon attack in human history, every burned city, every tale of winged monsters destroying civilization, all my work. I've been cultivating hatred between your species for millennia. The revelation struck like lightning. Morrison stared at the sorcerer in horror. You're responsible for the Chicago burning? The London dragon raids. Cursed dragons, driven mad by magical compulsion. Forced to attack humans, while retaining just enough awareness to suffer for their actions. Grimwald's smile was pure evil. It's so much more satisfying than simple conquest. Turn natural allies into eternal enemies. Then feed on the conflict for power. Zephyr stepped forward, his form blazing with golden light as dragon fire burned away the last vestiges of his human disguise. But instead of becoming a monster, his transformation revealed something magnificent, a dragon whose scales shimmered like captured sunlight, whose eyes held both ancient wisdom and human compassion. Your curse is broken, Grimwald said in disbelief. Impossible. The binding was perfect. Love isn't bound by magic, Kira said, moving to stand beside Zephyr's transformed form. Her hand rested against his scaled neck, and where she touched, both their bodies glowed with soft golden light. You created a curse that could only be broken by genuine acceptance. You never imagined a human would choose to love a dragon knowing exactly what they were. The bond between them was now visible to everyone present, threads of light that connected their hearts, their minds, their very souls. It was beautiful, pure, completely beyond Grimwald's understanding. Then I'll destroy you both, the sorcerer snarled, gathering dark energy for a final assault. If I cannot keep dragons cursed, I'll ensure they're extinct. But Morrison stepped forward, his weapon now trained on Grimwald instead of the dragons. Not on my watch. If you're responsible for centuries of false flag attacks, then you're the real threat to humanity. The battle that followed was brief but intense. Grimwald's magic crashed against the combined defenses of dragon power, human technology, and the unbreakable bond between Zephyr and Kira, when Elena's dragon tech weapons joined. Morrison's military firepower and Seraphine's ancient strength, the sorcerer found himself overwhelmed. As Grimwald's power finally failed, his centuries of curses began breaking in mass. Across the world, dragons who had been trapped in human form for generations suddenly found themselves free. The magical barriers that had hidden the supernatural world started dissolving, revealing a reality far more complex and wonderful than most humans had imagined. Morrison lowered his weapon, staring at Zephyr and Kira. A bond that breaks curses. Cooperation instead of conquest. Maybe it's time we reconsidered the supernatural accords. Maybe it's time we reconsidered everything, Lena said, her tablet now displaying readings of magical energies stabilizing around the globe. Dragons returning to their true forms, ecosystems beginning to heal. Centuries of artificial conflict ending. As the sun set over Crescent Bay, Kira stood on the beach where she'd first found Zephyr. He remained in dragon form now, magnificent and powerful, but his eyes held the same gentle soul she'd fallen in love with. The curse was completely broken, but their bond had only grown stronger. "No more hiding," she said, her hand resting against his scaled chest where she could feel his great heart beating. "No more pretending to be something you're not." "And you?" he asked, his voice now carrying the deep resonance of his true form. "Are you prepared for a world where your husband is a dragon?" She smiled, looking out at the ocean where other dragons were beginning to surface. Freed from centuries of magical imprisonment, in the distance, human ships approached, not with weapons, but with scientists and diplomats ready to forge new relationships. "I'm prepared for a world where love matters more than fear," she said. "Where different doesn't mean dangerous. Where a marine biologist and a dragon prince can work together to heal the damage that prejudice has caused." Above them, Seraphina soared through the sky, her joyous roar echoing across the water as more of her people emerged from hiding. The age of dragons was returning, but this time they wouldn't stand alone against humanity. They would stand together, guided by bonds of love that no curse could break. As night fell, Kira and Zephyr remained on the beach, planning their future in a world where anything seemed possible. The dragon's curse had been broken not by magic or prophecy, but by the simple human truth that love sees past appearances to the heart beneath, and in that truth, both their species found hope for a better tomorrow. The end.